What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we've got to talk about that weird Nintendo Direct that we just got today, March 27th of 2025. I think it's going to be fun to see the reaction online to this Direct because you're definitely going to get people saying this was the worst Direct of the Switch era. And I understand where they're coming from, right? We only got 2 new announcements from Nintendo. They're both from relatively niche franchises, and they're both not coming out until 2026. And we'll get into those announcements in a second. But for me, I thought it was a pretty fun Direct because I love both of those franchises that just got new entries, and also the big kahuna's coming next week, right? We're getting the Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd. That's the one that I think is going to blow us away. This was just kind of an appetizer. These were the mozzarella sticks before the big quarter-pounder burger that comes as your main meal. And I can't wait to dig into that juicy, savory burger in just 6 days. But for now, this Direct is what we have to talk about, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to mention in terms of what this means for the Switch 2 and the Switch 2 Direct. But first, let's just talk about the announcements that interested me in this presentation. So as always, I'm not going to run through every announcement, just the ones that piqued my interest. The first one I thought was odd. They opened the Direct on Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D. Now look, I bought Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D, and from what I played of it, I really liked it. I didn't finish it because there were just so many games that came out last year, and also the Switch version's a little blurry. I'm kind of hoping they do an enhanced version for the Switch 2, and that 1080p Switch 2 screen can help it out a little because as it stands, it doesn't look great on the Switch. Regardless, this is one of the most odd openings to a Nintendo Direct I can ever remember. It's not a Nintendo game, it's a game we already knew about, and we didn't even get a date for it. We had a 2025 date on this back in the June Direct last year. We still just have a 2025 date on it right now. So I'm not really sure why this opened the Direct. Square Enix must have brought out the Brinks truck to make sure this got the opener. But it does represent a common theme in this Direct, which is that we didn't get a lot of dates. And for the biggest announcements, we just did not get any dates whatsoever. At most, we got the year that we already knew it was coming out in, or for the new announcements, we just got a 2026 date. So this announcement was kind of indicative of what was to come for this Direct. Look, those games look great. I'm sure I'll pick them up eventually, but I can't say I was super excited to see the Direct open on this, and I'll be honest, when I saw the Direct open on this, I got a little nervous. I thought maybe this wasn't going to be the crazy Switch 1 finale that we were all hoping for. We then got an interesting announcement, Patapon 1 and 2 Replay, which was a Sony IP, I thought. Maybe it still is. Are they selling it off? Are they just putting it on Nintendo because it's a good fit? I do think it's a great fit for the system. Of all of Sony's niche IPs, it is one that seems to have a nice spot on the Switch. It's got a nice cartoony art style. It's kind of a rhythm-based game. It feels right at home on the Switch, but it is interesting. There wasn't a Sony logo. There wasn't a PlayStation logo in this trailer, but this is a PlayStation game that's migrating to the Switch. And it wasn't the only PlayStation IP that came to the Switch, it seems, in this Direct. So could that mean something more? We'll talk about it later, but for now, this is a pretty cool announcement. I'll definitely pick it up when it comes out on July 11th. We then got a nice, juicy trailer for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and oh my gosh, this game looks incredible. I mean, it's gotta be the best looking Switch game, right? All the textures are so sharp, the reflections are so pretty, it's so colorful and vibrant. I love the part where there's those flowers and those butterflies flying around. The entire game looks so much more natural and earthy, and I'm so excited to see why this planet looks the way it does, because this is a very distinct look for the Metroid Prime series. Also, Samus's new red suit looks absolutely baller, so good. Cannot wait to fully upgrade Samus and get that outfit. But the most interesting part of this trailer was that once again, we just got a 2025 date. No time frame, no release month, obviously no release date, simply 2025. And again, We'll talk about why that might be in a second, but let's get into the other announcements. This one was incredible. Rhythm Heaven Groove. Can you believe it? A new Rhythm Heaven game, a series I was convinced was dead, right? The creator seemed to be having health problems. Nintendo hadn't made an entry in the series for years, but no, it's coming back. And it's coming in 2026. This was odd. When I was watching this trailer, I thought, okay, this will be like a May game. And then the 2026 date came up and I was shocked. I mean, this is Rhythm Heaven, right? This isn't an in-depth, huge scope kind of game. So why are we seeing it potentially a year or more before its release? It kind of confused me. We'll get into why, again, in a second, but I am super excited for this game. It looks like classic Rhythm Heaven. It looks cute. It looks fun. It's exactly what I've been hoping for years from this series that, again, seemed dead in the water. So I'm stoked that it's coming back, even though I know it's not for everybody. We then got a new look at Pokemon Legends ZA. Again, just a 2025 release year, no release date, though that makes a little more sense because Pokemon traditionally likes to announce those things on their own time. We did get to see a little more of this game, and the more I look at this game and the more I see people talk about it, the more I like how it looks and how it seems to play. I was a little bit mixed initially that it was taking that art style from the new Pokemon games and not from Legends Arceus, but the more I watch it, I think it looks passable. I think it looks pretty good, and the gameplay seems pretty fun. You battle random trainers at night and try to rise up the ranks from Z to A, which was kind of a mind blow moment for me because that's what the title means. That's what ZA means. You're going from rank Z to rank A. Whoa! I was like, this is such a weird title, but it makes sense now. So that was a pretty cool reveal, but we still don't know when this game is coming out, which again, less surprising, but still worth noting. We then got the second Sony IP, Everybody's Golf Hot Shots. Now, this is not one I'm going to pick up. This game did not look very good. It's a golf game, which I don't really care about unless Mario's on the cover. Sorry. But it is, again, notable that this is seemingly a Sony IP making the jump to Nintendo. And both of these games, I believe, were co-developed by Bandai Namco. I believe both Patapon and Everybody's Golf Hot Shots had a Bandai Namco logo on them. So that's also worth noting. They have a Nintendo internal studio, I believe. But maybe it is a sign of things to come for Sony and Nintendo's relationship. We'll talk about that in a second, but that's the only reason this game is notable to me. I'm not too interested in it, but it could mean larger things to come. We then got a huge announcement. Tomodachi Life, living the dream. A new Tomodachi Life. I, once again, am stoked for this. The two big announcements we got in this Direct were Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life, which obviously aren't Mario and Zelda and Animal Crossing level announcements, but those are just two really fun, niche Nintendo franchises, and it's so awesome to see them return after both being gone for a decade, I believe. And this Tomodachi Life game looks really cool. The art style is kind of cel-shaded. It seems there's a lot more to do on the island than there was in the 3DS game, and it seems to still have that charm that it did back on the 3DS. I am just so excited for a new Tomodachi Life. A new Tomodachi Life with that Miitopia Mii Maker is going to be awesome. I think people are kind of underrating the appeal this game could have. The announcement got 64,000 likes on Twitter. I think this game could be huge, even if it is just a Switch game, but I think it's also going to be marketed alongside the Switch too, because it's coming out in 2026. Another 2026 game. Isn't that weird? The two biggest games announced in this Direct from Nintendo, both not coming out this year. So odd, so weird. We'll get into why. But Tomodachi Life, awesome. I can't believe it's back. I can't believe Rhythm Heaven's back. A lot of people are going to say this Direct is a C or a D or an F, but man, I can't help but be excited for those two announcements. I can't wait to play them. We also got two non-game announcements. If you didn't think this Direct was weird enough, we got two announcements that aren't even related to software. The first one, virtual game cards. I'm still not really sure what this feature's about. It seems that you can now share digital games across systems, which I suppose is a cool feature. really odd that they showed it in a Nintendo Direct. The other one is the Nintendo Today app, which is an app on your phone that gives you Nintendo news updates daily. The way Miyamoto introduced this app, it seems like it's going to be a substitute to Nintendo Directs. Perhaps there will be announcements on this app from time to time, which is really odd to me. He said they're still going to do Nintendo Direct, so this isn't a replacement for the Direct format, but maybe it is a replacement for Nintendo's Twitter presence. Twitter is where they announce a lot of little things, show new gameplay trailers, stuff like that. Maybe because of the guy running it and because of the content on it, they'd like to distance themselves from that app, and maybe that's why they're making the Nintendo Today app. Maybe Miyamoto just had this weird idea and they were like, sure, what the hell, you're Miyamoto, you get to make whatever you want. And he's like, Nintendo Today, this is my new app. I don't know. It was technically the closer for this Direct, which is just really weird, really odd. Probably the strangest closer to a Direct we've ever gotten, but it was nice to see Miyamoto, I guess. Who would have thought that we'd see a Miyamoto in this Direct, but he wouldn't reveal anything Mario? In fact, there was no Mario in this Direct. Who could have thought that? Miyamoto shows up, but there's no Mario in this Direct. Very strange indeed. But those were all the notable announcements. Let's get into some analysis. Why was this Direct so weird? And the thought I had after watching the Direct and seeing people's reactions was that, to me, this felt more like the first Switch 2 Direct rather than the last Switch 1 Direct. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, think about the big Nintendo announcements in this presentation. We got Metroid Prime 4 Beyond without a date. That could be a game we see on the Switch 2 still. If we got a date in this Direct, I would have said it's not involved with the Switch 2 in any way, but we didn't get a date, so I still think there's hope that Metroid Prime 4 could be involved with the Switch 2 in some way. We'll get to that in a second again. Rhythm Heaven Groove, 2026 game. That game's not going to get marketing really until the Switch 2's out. Same thing with Tomodachi Life, which is coming in 2026 and will also probably be marketed alongside the Switch 2. And then those two non-software features. The virtual game cards are either just a quality of life feature that are also going to be present on the Switch 2, or perhaps it's their kind of introduction to an all-digital Nintendo Switch 2. Maybe there will be a SKU of the Switch 2 without a game cartridge. That would be weird. But if they're making it a point to show this virtual game card service off during a Nintendo Direct, perhaps that's priming us for something like that in a week. And then the Nintendo Today app was marketed alongside the Switch 2. Miyamoto said after the Switch 2 Direct, you're going to be getting daily updates on the system on the Nintendo Today app. Every announcement that Nintendo made in this presentation can be linked back to the Switch 2 in some way, which is why I feel like this was almost the first Switch 2 presentation and probably tells us that Nintendo is focused on the Switch 2. I know they're still going to support the Switch. That much is obvious. We got 2 Switch announcements for 2026 in this Direct, but it might not be as much support as we were expecting, right? There were people expecting a Fire Emblem remake, a Kirby port, Metroid Prime 2 and 3, Star Fox, F-Zero, all this stuff. We might not be getting that on the Switch 1. Those projects might have moved on to the Switch 2, and it's just going to be weirder, nicher stuff on the Switch 1 from here on out. I'm not sure. To that point, we still don't have any 2025 games dated for Nintendo. Prime 4 and Legend ZA have a 2025 year, but don't really even have a time frame. And then the 2 games, again, that we got in this Direct are 2026 releases. So what does that mean? Are we just not getting those rumored games that we thought would come out this year, like Kirby Planet Robobot, or are they saving them for later? I'm not sure. I think a game like Fire Emblem 4 Remake is probably on the Switch 2. If that game still exists, that feels like something that would be a Switch 2 only game. But these smaller ports like Kirby Planet Robobot, maybe they'll just be announced in the Nintendo Today app. Maybe they won't have any fanfare to them. Or potentially, there's still going to be a June Direct. And in that Direct, we'll get 1 or 2 Switch games for the summer/fall season. And they just didn't want to reveal them before the Switch 2 event because they know they're going to keep this April to June timeframe open in their schedule because maybe that's when they're releasing the console. Everything feels very up in the air here 6 days before the Switch 2 presentation. But as it stands, I do think we're going to get Switch 1 games eventually like Kirby Planet Robobot, but it might not be for a little while because I think all of us thought that game was going to come out by June, and now I think it's pretty obvious it's not coming out until after June. Speaking of that April to June timeframe, I don't think we got a single announcement for that time frame. We might have gotten one little third-party game released in those 3 months, but April, May, and June, and I think more interestingly, May and June, are wide open right now for Nintendo, both on the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. I think the Switch 2 is coming out in that time frame. I know that's not a hot take, right? Everyone kind of thinks that, but I think this was just more confirmation. We're going to get the Switch 2 in May or June, right? Why would there not be a Kirby Planet Robobot port then? Why would there not be Metroid Prime 2 and 3 coming in 2 weeks? Why would there not be a Fire Emblem game in June? Probably because the new console is dropping in those months and they want all the focus to be on the Switch 2, and maybe Switch 1 owners get Metroid Prime 4 as well, and that's it. But they want the primary focus to be on their new console. I think that's pretty evident right now. And speaking of that new console, I think this shows us, and maybe this is cope because it was kind of an underwhelming direct, as much as I am really excited for Rhythm Heaven and really excited for Tomodachi Life, I wonder if this shows us that the Switch 2 direct is going to be massive. Now, I already thought that, for the record. I think I said it in my predictions video. I might do another video on the Switch 2 Direct, and if I do, I'm going to tell you again that I think it's going to be the greatest Direct we've ever seen, but I think this just kind of seals it, because I thought that this Direct was going to give us Switch 1 games throughout 2025, and I thought that was going to fill out Nintendo's release schedule for this year, but it did the exact opposite. It gave us games for 2026 and gave us no clarity on 2025. Which means there's got to be something coming out this year, and obviously we know the Switch 2 is coming out this year, but there's got to be something coming out soon. The Switch 2 is not going to come out in September, and we're just not going to have Nintendo games for the next 6 months, right? There is going to be a lot of games releasing for Nintendo this year, and probably in the next few months, we just don't know about them, and I think we're going to find out about them at the Switch 2 Direct. And I think Mario Kart's coming, I think 3D Mario's coming, and I think we're going to get a third really big game too. I wasn't sure about that before. I did predict it, but I wasn't certain about it. But I'm almost certain about it now. Like, we're getting that third big game alongside Mario Kart and 3D Mario. Is it Splatoon 4? Is it Animal Crossing? I'm not sure. But I think it's almost a guarantee because there's nothing else coming out for Nintendo right now. I think they're saving their bullets for the Switch 2 event. That's my hope. That's my prediction. I really think this one is going to blow us away. But the question then becomes, is Metroid Prime 4 going to be a part of it? And I think it has to be, right? This game has been through development hell. That even feels like an understatement. So maybe this game just isn't ready and they don't know if it's coming out in 2025, which would be pretty disappointing. But I don't buy that. Like, watch this trailer. This game looks so good and so polished and so ready to come out. I really think this is going to be a part of the Switch 2 event. And I was watching a Nintendo forecast video. Go subscribe to him if you haven't. And he said something I thought was really interesting. By showing off Prime 4 at this Direct, when you show it off again as a part of the Switch 2 launch, people aren't going to be distracted by new Metroid Prime footage because they just got 3 minutes of it in the Switch 1 Direct. They're more so going to be focused on the Switch 2 aspect of it. So you're not going to be splitting attentions and distracting people from the main thing you want to communicate about this game, which is that what I think, it's a Switch 2 launch title. It's going to have its own SKU. It's going to look a lot better on the Switch 2. You want that point of comparison, and you want that information already in your viewers' minds, right? So I think that's why we got a 3-minute trailer and no release date, because I think it's gonna play a part in the Switch 2 event. I don't know how big, but I'm kind of convinced it's a Switch 2 SKU now. I think it's gonna be a huge part of the Switch 2. I think it's gonna be a launch title alongside Mario Kart. I think it's gonna have a Switch 2 SKU. The way they positioned this game today was not how I expected it. It was very odd, and to me, there's only one reason for that. It's that it's a Switch 2 game as well, and we're gonna see it in 6 days. I've got 2 smaller points to talk about, and then we're done. One, is Sony soft launching Switch 2 support? Now, the Patapon and the Everybody's Golf games don't seem to have much involvement from them, but they are Sony IPs. Is this Sony's way of kind of priming everybody for a big support of Switch 2? Whether it be a port of Astrobot or a port of Horizon or something else entirely, could we get a big Sony announcement in 6 days for the Switch 2? And this is kind of their way of soft launching it, of saying, hey, we're introducing you to this, so in 6 days you won't be mad at us when we bring it up to another level for the Switch 2. Maybe I'm just coping and I just want Astrobot on the Switch 2. Very possible. But I think this could be a sign of something bigger, because like when Microsoft gave us Super Lucky's Tale and some other smaller games, it feels like it would be weird to stop at these two games in terms of Sony's support of Nintendo. It feels like it's only going to get bigger. And obviously, Sony and Microsoft have very different strategies right now in terms of their games, but I still think it could be a sign of something bigger for PlayStation and Nintendo's relationship. The final thing I want to bring up is we didn't get a single Mario game in this Direct. I mean, when is the last time that has happened? It's pretty weird, right? No mention of Mario whatsoever. Again, we got Miyamoto in this Direct, but we didn't get Mario. I think that's also a sign of things to come. I think they're saving their Mario bullets for later in the year. Obviously, the Switch 2 blowout is going to be one with a lot of Mario. We're going to get Mario Kart. I'm almost certain we're going to get 3D Mario. And I think we could get a third Mario game, whether it be Donkey Kong or Mario Sports or something else. I think they're going to have even more Mario than we might be expecting for the Switch 2 event. I also think it's pretty likely we're going to get a September Direct like we did in 2020 for the Mario 40th anniversary. I feel like Galaxy 2 or 3D Land or some sort of collection or something would have been perfect for this Direct, but I think they're saving it for September like they did in 2020. I think we're going to get a big 40th anniversary blowout full of merchandise and game announcements and new trailers and all of that stuff in September for Mario's 40th. I think the lack of Mario kind of suggests that. Well, that's all I have to say about this Nintendo Switch 1 Direct, perhaps the final Switch 1 Focus Direct we'll ever get. It's kind of sad. It's been a great 8 years for the Nintendo Switch, but it's finally time to move on to greener pastures, and I cannot wait to see what Nintendo has in store in 6 days for that April 2nd Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. With that said, tell me in the comments, did you enjoy this Nintendo Switch Direct? What grade would you give it? For me, I'll give it a B. It wasn't the most content-heavy Direct, but I am really excited for Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life. Also, tell me in the comments, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think this gives us some clues into what we could be seeing in 6 days at that Nintendo Switch 2 Direct? Tell me all about it in the comments. Like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that big, fat button. Share this video with anyone who might like to see it. And with all that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.